In a highly controversial move, the government has directed smartphone makers to pre-install the Sanchar Saathi app on their devices for reasons of cybersecurity. But the mandatory and supposedly permanent installation of the app is raising serious privacy and surveillance concerns. To discuss the issue with us, we have with us digital rights activist Nikhil Pahwa and Communist Party of India Marxist MP John Brittas. Welcome to the both of you.
Right.
Nikhil,
Thanks.
I'll begin by asking you. The government is saying that this app is essentially just an IMEI checker. So, for people who wouldn't know what that is, can you explain to us what is an IMEI number and what is it the government claiming that this app will do?
So essentially, every handset is required to have an IMEI number, which is a unique identifier for that device. And essentially, if you want to get this is not easily changeable, and therefore, when a device gets stolen, if you want to either stop it or you want to detect its location, and IMEI number is usually helpful in doing that. Of course, Sanchar Saathi seems to be more than an IMEI detector.
Right. Okay. So I also wanted to ask you, just going by their claims, are there not more non-intrusive ways to verify IMEI numbers and to detect fake handsets?
So I'm not aware of the mechanism for detecting or what even fake handsets are, or the mechanism for detecting IMEI numbers. But the fact is, why do you need to detect every single IMEI number? Why do you need to have it mandatorily on every single device? If someone needs to upload their IMEI number or download the Sanchar Saathi app, they should be free to do so from the open web. Why is it being forced onto every device is something that is not understandable, because it creates a security vulnerability. You see, if every device has a Sanchar Saathi app in every device in the country, then all you need to do to infiltrate this app, and you know how badly government and apps are and how vulnerable they can be, they need to hack just one app and enter everyone's device, right? So with the premise of creating a cyber security app, you're actually creating a cyber vulnerability. And that's the basic core problem with this, that it exposes us as citizens to a substantial amount of hacking risk, while also there is a surveillance risk, because this app has access to your call records, the files on your device. And let's not forget, most of our apps are unencrypted on device, or messages are unencrypted on device, which is what Pegasus was able to exploit, because it was installed in RAM and it was able to access messages from the device. WhatsApp messages, for example, are encrypted on transit, which means no one can retrieve that message while it's in transit, but on device is unencrypted. So you're effectively allowing a surveillance application onto your device here, or you're being forced to install it on your device.
Okay. So, Brittas sir, I wanted to also ask you, what do you have to say about the government claiming that this is just for cybersecurity?
I am amused at the stand of the government that is empowering the people. They don't want to empower the people by giving jobs, by giving food grains. They want to empower the people by ensuring that they are in a digital prison, and the government will always observe what they are thinking, what they are saying, what they are doing. And the next step would be that you will have angle monitors, you will have some brain chips, you will have some collar chips, and that will be better monitoring, empowerment of the citizens of this country. That is the rational logic of this government. And when I say this, I say it with a little bit of authority, because I have been one public servant who approached the Supreme Court when that Pegasus incident happened. And you know the observations of the Supreme Court, that the government of India didn't cooperate at all with the committee. And further, the government of India didn't deny that they bought Pegasus from 5 away from Israel. And further, 2 years back, there were instances of a state agency hacking the iPhone of many people. And many of us complained to the government of India. And they said that it's alarming, very interestingly. And they referred the matter to CERTIC, that is Computer Emergency Response.
Right.
I must have asked 5 questions in the parliament as to what has happened to the investigation, inquiry by CERTIC. And if inquiry is completed, what would be the findings? You know, all these 5 questions which I asked were disallowed, saying that this issue is a secret matter. So it's certain that the state agencies had attempted to invade the privacy of those public personalities. Many of them are close to us: journalists, judges, politicians, a whole lot of people. Now, Pegasus is a costly proposition, and iPhone, Apple will not allow them access. Maybe Android, it could be happening in a much more frequent ways. So they thought that this would be the convenient way of getting into the life of people. Now, Mr. Nikhil has been very soft on the government, of course, but I can't see. I mean, the statement made by the minister today saying that
Yeah.
if you don't want, you can uninstall it. That means we would certainly get it embedded. My worry, my apprehension with the trust deficit around me is that the moment the app is embedded, the app will start. They will start, I mean, taking out everything from the iPhone. And Mr. Nikhil should, should vouch for the fact that what could be the percentage of people who will be having that digital literacy to uninstall or delete it. See, even myself, I don't know how many apps are in my phone number, in my phone instrument. Normally, this happens like that. And highly educated people, when they sign contract, if there is a fine print, do we read that? No, we don't read that. Only 1%, 0.1% people read. So this is another ploy saying that. And let me just, refer to certain observations made by the Supreme Court after obtaining the report of the Pegasus expert committee. The Supreme Court read out saying that amend the existing surveillance law to incorporate the right to privacy, enhance cybersecurity law, ensure Indians aren't spied upon, and privacy is respected. This is not a fact that the Supreme Court in Kuppuswamy case said that right to privacy is a fundamental right. So what is happening in this country is absolutely diametrically opposite to the observation of the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court body. And one more point I would say. Recently, I'll just add, recently, the government issued a direction saying that OTT, like WhatsApp or something like that, you need to have a SIM. Why do you insist that? Why do you insist that? It's another form of, I would say, invasion into your phone through the SIM. I have a lot of suspicions with regard to the motives of this government. That's why I am a little more open when I air my apprehensions.
Right, right. Okay, I'm just going to circle back to the Union Communication Minister's statement today, Jyotiraditya Scindia. And Nikhil, I want to ask you that he did say this, that it's not mandatory. The opposition is just, making a mountain out of a molehill, and it can be deleted. But the directive says that, the directive that has gone to the companies, it says that the app should be readily visible and that its functionalities should not be disabled or restricted. So now, can both things be true?
No, it can't be. So if the app functionality is disabled or restricted, it means it's uninstallable. And if you look at the PIB press release, it clearly states that the app should not be uninstallable. So I think the ministers trying to deflect the situation rather than get to the point of the fact that they've made this app mandatory. And if he does believe that this app should be uninstallable. I would ask about why this app is mandatorily installed in the first place, and why, if anyone wants it, they can go and get it. So it should be uninstallable. They should rescind this particular this particular directive. And we'd broken the story about the SIM binding, and the SIM binding actually makes it worse, because effectively your account is intrinsically linked to the SIM, which creates a vulnerability, because that's a telecom level linking with an internet account. It means that your account goes with the SIM. So if it goes on to another, if a phone is stolen, sometimes your device is locked, and the thief can't unlock it, but they can now install the SIM on another device, validate an account, and then use that account on that device. And because you don't have a SIM, you can't get that stopped. So, in fact, to my mind, the DOT is fairly ignorant about how cybersecurity works, about how the internet works, and this should be left to MeitY. These policies were brought in without a public consultation. When the telecom bill was passed, the minister was asked, Ashwini Vaishnav at that time was asked repeatedly about whether OTTs are covered under the Telecom Act, and he refused to comment, but eventually gave a statement to the Economic Times that OTTs are not covered. Despite that, in the MVN regulation that came out 2 months ago, the government actually, the DOT, took control of online regulation by saying if you use a mobile number to register any service or any app or anything, then you come under, then you can be regulated by DOT. So this is the start of a lot of ignorant regulations from DOT, because they've taken control now. And I didn't like Ashwini Vaishnav as a minister, but I do feel that Sindhya is actually worse. Because at least Minister Vaishnav had feedback from the IT ministry as well. But just to Mr. Brittas' point, I'd also like to remind him that in the same Pegasus case, Justice Ramana very clearly said, we don't want to go into matters of national security. And I think that's a bit of a problem for me, because the Supreme Court seems to be giving a clean chit to the government when it comes to surveillance. Surveillance reform is something that we demanded when the right to privacy judgment was also being looked at. And I would like to remind everyone that the only reason the Supreme Court had to pass a verdict on the fundamental right to privacy was because, and I was in court for that particular hearing, Justice Chelameswar sent it to the 9-judge bench, because the union government argued that privacy isn't a fundamental right. And as shameful as that is, you have a situation now that it took them 7 years to pass a data protection law. The data protection law created massive exemptions for the government. It allowed the government to take data from private companies without any oversight. And they took another 2 years to pass the rules that would operationalize the data protection law. And now they've given another 18 months for implementation.
Right.
Which
so
means
now,
over 10 years, for over 10 years after the right to privacy judgment came out, we still don't have a data protection regulation in place, and the government is exempt from it anyway.
Yes.
So,
now, I just wanted to ask you about that anyways. Now, how does this app, with the kind of problems that are there with surveillance and privacy, how does this tie in with the DPDPA Act, where the government has given exemptions to
it? It doesn't. The government is exempt from the DPDP Act. And while Justice Sri Krishna's committee had made a fairly acceptable first version of the data protection law, what we saw was every time a new version came out, restrictions on the government were progressively removed. And so while the data protection law does give us protections against companies like Facebook and Google and all startups essentially, it doesn't protect us from the biggest collector of data in the country, which is the Indian government. And the Indian government has gone through this exercise for a period of now almost 18 years of collecting more and more data and connecting more and more data, a lot of it mandatorily. Children, after they're being born, are being linked to, their birth certificates are being mandatorily linked to an Aadhaar. When they enter school, it's linked to an Aadhaar ID, which is linked to an Aadhaar. Every step of your life, people are being linked. And I'll go back to something that was discussed in the Aadhaar case at that time. The Madhya Pradesh government actually had this presentation online talking about 360-degree citizen surveillance, right? It is what we have seen being implemented in Telangana. Hyderabad is the most surveilled city in this country. And increasingly, what the government is doing is it's increasing surveillance on the pretext of fraud now. So we've seen, and I've been looking at this for over a decade and a half. I've seen multiple arguments, right? They in 2016, Ravi Shankar Prasad made a fake news argument to try and get WhatsApp to give access to messages. So you've had arguments of fake news, violence against women, children protection and child sexual abuse material, and terrorism so far. Fraud is a new angle for again further violations of privacy.
Okay, so, Nikhil, one thing I wanted to ask you is this:
yeah.
The directive is not just for new phones, right? It also says that
it's for all phones. It's for all phones. It's so if you have a phone that doesn't have this, it will a Sanchar Saathi app will be pushed to you the next time you update your operating system. Now the people who reached out to me saying we'll move on to smartphones, we'll move on to dumb phones, button phones, as they say. That doesn't help because anyway, regular phones are already under surveillance using the government's centralized monitoring system. All of this data will tie into NatGrid. NatGrid, the National Intelligence Grid, is the system that's being built to give real-time access to citizens' data across 1,900 public and private databases. So you have to understand the scale of what's going on, because the moment government also starts bringing in access to private databases and starts connecting it with device data and public databases, all silos are being broken and the 360-degree profile of every citizen is complete. That is a direction we're headed in step by step. Just about, I think, a week ago in the Gazette notifications, I noticed that MHA is hiring officers for NatGrid, which means the NatGrid project hasn't been shelved. The Congress came up with this idea in 2010, but the BJP is implementing it. So look, it doesn't matter. Governments will change, but the bureaucracy keeps infringing on our privacy, and they've completely set aside the right to privacy judgment in practice. And honestly, I don't have much from the Supreme Court right now, because any Supreme Court that doesn't bring in surveillance reform, because the government's definitely not going to do it, and says we're not going to get to matters of national security, clearly doesn't want to bring accountability into place. Even in Congress in the US, the surveillance agencies are subject to scrutiny from Congress. We have zero oversight. And I'd written about a mechanism for bringing in surveillance reform a few years ago, but that requires not just that requires political will, which will never be there, but it also needs a Supreme Court to stand up for fundamental rights, which, to be honest, looking at even the statements about censorship in the recent case involving the Bhatia, I don't have my hopes up. I think we have a long way to go before we can get there.
Okay. Brittas sir, I wanted to ask you that this directive, it has been sent straight to the manufacturers. It was not made public, and there seems to have been no public consultation or discussion with any stakeholders, no discussion in parliament. What do you have to say about that?
You know the style of this government. When Mr. Nikhil is saying that Ashwini Vaishnav was like this, and now the new minister, Sindhya, he thought would be better. But I would like to remind him that it's this Ashwini or Sindhya, it's immaterial. There's a deep state that is operating. And we know that who is managing all these parameters. That is much more important. And 2-3 points which I need to, dwell on. See, he talked about the parliamentary oversight. We have been always saying that these agencies need to be accountable to the parliament, all parliamentary committees. Now, take for this example. See, now parliament is in session. Such a crucial order has come out from the DOT. And the government had the bounden duty to at least inform the Parliament, or at least brief the IT Standing Committee, the Parliamentary Standing Committee. They will never do it. And one alibi that is always underscored by this government is national security. Now, they think that if they say that this is being done to protect the citizens from the terrorists, then they think that is the best way forward to camouflage all their heinous intentions. So, I don't expect this government to be transparent at all. The government will not be even telling you what they really intend. I can give you one small example. See, they don't even trust NIC. Now, a couple of weeks back, all the mail accounts of the government officers, everybody, including member of parliaments, ministers, were shifted to Soho. I wrote a letter to the Rajya Sabha chairman. I was not against them shifting it, but see, they had invested something like 3,000 to 4,000 crores to upgrade NIC, and NIC was operating. All of a sudden, they decided that it would be shifted to a private operator. I don't know what is the real, because I'm not a tech savvy guy like Nikhil. I don't understand the nuances and pitfalls of this. But as I told you, I have a huge trust deficit with this government, like many others. So whatever they speak outwardly and their intentions, there are glaring gaps which can be evident from the past deeds and past works. So I feel that this is a stage where the civil society, all those people who want to protect the basic rights, right of liberty and life, need to come together to checkmate and to take on this government on this issue, because it's a question of your dignity. It's like somebody was saying that it's like that French philosophers, what is that panopticon jail, where everybody is being looked into, or like a big boss. The whole nation is being converted to a big boss. So many cameras are there. I mean, there is nothing called a privacy for you. So it's very evident that. And further, see, my information is that 120 crore devices would be fitted with this. 120 crores? Yeah, that's a number which the government has given out earlier. Think about the humongous, exercise the government is doing to make sure that our lives are miserable. And the so-called accountability we expect from a government is not seen at all. First of all, the government is not accountable to the parliament. See, numerous questions we ask with regard to issues like that, Pegasus or the certain investigation or inquiry, none of these questions have been answered. If the government had said that there were systematic attempts to, invade into the phones of people in 2023, and whatever the alarms which were given by the Apple were right, the government is not denying. And what has happened to a certain inquiry? That was something which I was amused to know, because 2 years, 3 years, no report has come out. So who is inquiring into it? So it's very clear that the intention of the government is to make sure that this country is going to do a surveillance mission. And I feel that this is a time when all of us have to come together to fight. It's not a question of opposition. Let me just tell you that whenever this issue of high-handed acts of the government come into fore, no, people feel that this is an opposition ploy. No, it's a question of the right of every citizen of this country, whether you want to have a dignified life in this country or not. So, for a moment, let us forget about opposition ruling party and think about the Pegasus thing. Who did they spy on? It's not only opposition politicians, even those people, ministers, even those judges, army leaders, all these people, bureaucrats, were spied on. And this government, I would certainly say that the first spying would be done on those people who are sitting on their left and right. That happens to all these deep state actors. That is the permanent fixture of it. So technical details and parameters, I think Nikhil has explained. I'm just telling
Right.
you about this deficit that has been built up in this
No,
country.
actually, Mr. Brittas, Pegasus is also very personal for me because my uncle, Professor Jagdeep Chokar, was also being spied on. He is no more now, so I don't know what happens to that petition. But I was helping in that matter, and like I said, it's not the government I don't trust anyway. But I also feel it's a failure of the Supreme Court. If you remember, between the Aadhaar case and the right to privacy judgment, even beginning when Justice Kehar announced it, 700 days passed. Now it's been 2 years, and we still don't have a hearing in the Pegasus case. I think the Supreme Court needs to be more accountable to citizens.
Right. Okay.
All the pillars of this democratic process, where it is first pillar, second pillar, third pillar, are all crumbling. See, nowadays I don't look up to the Supreme Court at all. It used to be the beacon of hope for us. But now, whenever the government underscores the aspect of inverted comma national security, I don't know whose securities they are talking about, because we have a blast in Delhi capital also the other day. I don't know what they're doing about it. And Amit Shah, the Home Minister, had on record said in Parliament that he has wiped off the terrorists from this country completely. And the inner terrorist who comes from Pakistan will be shot between the eyebrows after it has happened. Anyway, I think this is a matter which is of grave importance, and actually, this is bringing bad name to this democracy.
Right. Okay.
Now, let us see that. What could be the image we are, building up across the globe? How will the others? Already, Apple, I think they have made a statement that they will not adhere to it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much
Thank you
for
very
joining
much.
us.